all the aspirants to go through the previous year questions. Now, please note that it does not matter which subject it is. We have to go through PYQs for every subject. We may think it's current affairs based questions are asked from this particular subject, so there is no need, no such thing. Or probably you may think static questions are asked from, let's say, history section, so that is more important. Of course, static becomes all the more important, but at the same time, subjects like economics, even science and technology for that matter, you have to have a look at the previous year questions as well. So we'll be starting with the economics series over here. Other series are already going on. Now the economic series will also start. Now, what is the reason for us to go through the previous year questions? So, if I may ask, what are the reasons for it? So, the very first reason, if I may tell you, is that UPSC repeats questions. UPSC repeats questions. So when I say repeats questions, it's not that exactly the same question, but at times almost the same questions have also been repeated with respect to the countries surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. You know, that question actually has been almost, it was the same that was repeated. But when you talk about UPSC repeating, it does not necessarily mean the exact same question being repeated, but the similar or same concept asked in a different manner, right? Or the same region with respect to the map of the world, or the same concept of economics in a different manner, UPSC would ask you. So UPSC is repeating questions. When UPSC is doing that, can we afford to lose marks on such questions which are sort of from the previous years? Of course not. It's a comparative exam. If the question is easy, you are more so required to do that, because a lot of people will be doing that. So that is one thing. Hence we should be aware what that concept is, what the actual answer is. Sometimes it can be confusing. Both options may look correct. So certain questions which have been previously asked, and on the same lines, if a new question is being asked, you have to be able to solve it. So that is one thing. What about the other? The next thing is UPSC makes questions from options. Questions from options. What do I mean by this? By this I mean that, let's say if in 2016 there was a question asked which had, of course, the questions will have 4 options. Now, one of them may be correct. The rest 3 will of course be incorrect. So UPSC may have, let's say, asked a concept, and this concept is, this statement defines which of the following concept. So there may be 4 different concepts given over here. One of them is right. The other 3, you need to, when you're going through the previous year question, it does not simply mean you look at the question, you look at the option, you get the answer and move ahead. No. What about the other options? If the other option consists of some other concepts, you need to go through them as well. You need to know what these concepts are as well. Why? Because it can so happen that in 2024, a question based on one of these concepts are asked to you. So what is the thing? UPSC will make questions from the options as well. Right. Now, we have talked about this. Further, if I may have to, we'll come to this table later. Further, if I may have to tell more reasons. One was what? Repeat. Second was what? Questions from options. Then at the same time, when you are going through previous year question paper, you understand what you have to study, okay, what you have to study and what not you have to study. At the same time, how you have to study. How to study. So what are the 3 things? What to study, what not to study, and how to study. How am I saying this? That's because, many a times it so happens when we are making notes, we do not know we should make notes of what. When we are underlining, highlighting, when we are trying to remember things, memorize things, revise things, we don't know what to mug up, what to memorize, what to remember, what to understand, what to make notes of. That is because we may not know what can be asked. When we go through the previous year question paper, we understand what kinds of questions are asked. I have seen students, underlining huge number of facts. For example, the numbers. Even in history, when you talk about modern history, 1857 revolt. So how many soldiers took part and how many died, all those things are not required. Here also, if you talk about the GDP of India, so we just need to know whether it's the growth is there, is it the rate is increasing or decreasing. You need not memorize the exact data. If you are studying 5-year plans, you need not necessarily know the growth rate of each and every year of each and every plan. What you can generally know is which plan had, let's say, the highest growth, in which plan the growth rate decreased, right? Which was probably a break period, right? All these general or macro level things you should know. You should not know that there's no need to know that second 5-year plan has XYZ percentage point. No, there's no need. How will you understand what to actually know, what not, when you go through the previous year question? Now, there is one thing. It can very well happen then at times UPSC asks a very factual, numerical, number-based question which wants the exact data, right? But at times in UPSC, we are required to leave that kind of questions as well. So if one or two such questions which have come in previous years, it comes, you can very well leave, but we will not leave that also. How? We will use previous year papers to approach in a particular manner. So when I say don't go behind these numbers, I do not mean, what I mean exactly is, initially let's not go behind that. Let's follow a Pareto principle. Pareto principle says that with 20% of the effort, let's first focus on the 80% of the marks that we can get. First do this. Because the remaining 20% of the marks that you will get will require probably 80% of your effort. So this we can do later on. First, the idea is to achieve this. I hope this is absolutely clear. This is how we'll do smart study as well as your hard work. Okay. So we know what to study, what not to study, and how to study. This is also we have known. We understand the type of questions that are being asked. For example, last year, suddenly the way in which UPSC is giving options changed. Okay, the way has completely changed. They have sort of eliminated the elimination method itself. They have started giving options like only one of the statement is correct, and only 2 of the statements are correct, only 3 of the statements are correct, all statements are correct. They are not saying 1 or 2, 1 or 3, 3 and 4, or all of them. Earlier it was like the options were statement. Let's say they have given 4 statements. So they will give options like statement 1 and 2 only, or statement 1 and 3 only, or statement 1 and 4 only, or 1, 2, 3 and 4. So what happens is we can eliminate. If we know statement 1 is wrong, or let's say statement 3 is wrong, so this is gone, this is gone, 2 options are gone. But now what kind of options they give? They give an option like only one of the statement is correct. Now which one we don't know, and here it will be only 2, only 3, all 4, right? So if you, let's say, know one, let's say the second statement is wrong, so how many options you can eliminate? Only 1. Here, by just knowing about one statement, you could eliminate 2 options. At times, by knowing just one statement, you could eliminate 3 options. But now, due to the change in which they asked, if you know one statement is, let's say, incorrect, you will be able to eliminate one of the option. If you know one statement is correct, you won't be able to do anything. If you know, let's say for example, statement 1 is correct, still all the 4 options will remain. Only one is correct, remains. 2 statements are correct, that will also remain. 3 statements are correct, that also remains. All 4 are correct, that also remains, right? So UPSC has made it this way. Now, when will we understand this type of questions are asked? When we would have gone through the previous year question. In the same manner, there are different ways, different types of questions that are asked over the year by UPSC. Hence, it is very important to go through the previous year question paper. Also, when you go through that, you understand the psyche of the paper setter also. How they are thinking. Of course, we are not here to outwit UPSC. We actually, if we try to do that, that won't work. We have to be comprehensive in our approach, because UPSC, can surprise us anytime with respect to anything. So we won't try to outwit, but we would try to see what are the patterns, what are the trends, what are the types, what is the thought process behind a particular question, or what is the thought process behind setting the options in a particular manner. All those things we will again get to know with the help of the previous year questions. So the thought behind the questions, and not just the questions but the options. And trust me guys, it's also the option which makes the question difficult, right? If simply I asked about something related to any historical event, let's say some related to the reign of Shivaji Maharaj, right? So if we talk about in the 17th century, one of the options of the 17th century, the other option is of 21st, 20th, 19th century, we would know what is right, because the other options are very far. So when the options are closer, that makes it difficult. So what kind of options are given? At times what UPSC does is, they'll ask you a question, and the option which they know would attract the students the most, they will give that option as the very first option. Because you see the question, you get attracted, you tick it. So avoid such kind of silly mistakes. That does not mean option A will never be correct, but at times that happens. So all those understanding we'll get when we go through the previous year question. Okay, so these are the reason why we should go through previous year question. Now, since we will be, we have very clearly understood the reasons. Now, let's be more specific. Let's talk about economics now, or Indian economy now. So here in Indian economy series, we will be going through the, previous 13 years questions. 13 years PYQs is what we will be going through. And this 13 years of PYQs, I have divided into these 5 broad topics. Why 5 broad topics? See, if I divide them based on micro topics, what will happen is, we will come across 150, 160, 170 such topics, such micro topics. And then what will happen is, each micro topic will have one question. So that will not make much sense. Right, that is why the classification is being done at a broader level. Okay, so that we keep completing those broader things, and we keep completing those percentage of questions for economics. Okay, so the very first, today we will be starting with the basic concepts. So if you look at the basic concepts, in the last 13 years, around 17 questions have been asked. So on an average, more than one question is asked every year from the basic concepts. We'll start with that. Then we'll come to economic measurements. So when we talk about economic measurements, you have your GDP, your GNP, your various other tools to measure the economy, to measure the growth, etc. Right? Then the next two would be the most important topics. One is money and banking. Now, banking will consist of not just banks, not just types of banks, but also the NBFCs, RBI, the various policy, monetary policy committee, MPC, which is formed, inflation targeting by the bank. What is, when Reserve Bank basically regulates that. So all these things, and as well as money also. Then you have economic sectors. So money and banking, 56 questions. Economic measurement 27, money and banking 56 questions. So economic measurement last 13 years 27 questions. So how is it coming out? More than one question. Here you have more than 2 questions coming every year. Then money and banking, you have almost an exact number of 4 questions coming from money and banking over here. Then you have economic sectors. In economic sectors, we will deal with the primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector. These are the 3 main sectors. But then there are further sectors, quaternary, quinary, probably questions on these can also be asked. So what all is there in these economic sector? So primary sector deals with agriculture, food management, right? Secondary sector, your industrial sector, and tertiary sector is your service sector. And probably, as I said, quaternary and quinary questions can also be asked. So that is your economic sector. Again, having huge number of questions, having more than 4 questions every year on an average. This does not mean every year 4 exactly are asked. Sometimes it can be 5, the next year 3, and again 5. So on an average, these are the number of questions being asked. Then you have the socio-economic sector, wherein, in economy, when there is a growth, need not necessarily mean there will be development. How you utilize that growth will tell you whether there will be development or not. That is one thing. Also, as I already said, that growth will not necessarily mean development, but for development, growth is necessary. Because that growth is what you are going to use for development. So all those development, human development, socio-economic issues, social issues related to economy, unemployment, poverty, all those things, social sector schemes will come under the socio-economic sectors. And here you are having, of course, more than 2 questions being asked. Okay. So if you take a total in the last 13 years, 192 questions have been asked. 192 comes out to be 14.7 something questions every year. So on an average, almost 15 questions are being asked. Alright. So if you are a serious aspirant, studying seriously, following whatever lectures are being taken, going through the previous year question series, have done your NCRTs and the content which we provide, the lectures, the classes which we take, and the books we give you. If you do all that, you can easily solve more than 12 questions out of this 15. It's a very conservative number I am saying. You can of course end up solving 15, but very conservatively I am saying easily you will be able to solve 12 plus questions. And now, one more thing, give the test series, revise the test series as well. If any doubts, of course, you can reach out to us. So test series is also important. So if you do all this and this previous year question series, you will easily be able to solve 12 plus questions. I will, let you know how, because majority of the questions are based on basic concepts, on broadly these things which will be covered, which will already be told to you, explained to you, right? Even the 2 or 3 questions which are confusing, we will make effort to solve them as well. So even if you do that as well, you can actually solve all 15, but very easily more than 12 questions, and you are sorted. Okay. While we go through the previous year question, when we solve them together, I will explain and I will also give you logics how they can be easily, the answer can be easily identified, or the options can be easily eliminated. What logic do we use, right? Then while doing that, we'll realize it's not that difficult. Just ensure that you do all the basics. Okay. So now let's start with what? With the questions on basic concepts. Okay, so here is the very first question. What does the question says? The question says, despite being a high saving economy, capital formation may not result in significant increase in the output due to A, B, C, D. So despite being a high saving economy, in fact they are giving the initial references with respect to India. Later on we'll see whether it is related to India or not, but initial reference is with respect to India. Why? Because it is saying that despite being a high saving economy, isn't India a high saving economy? Yes, it is. More than 30% of savings we have, but an economic survey has mentioned this data, but the issue.
Welcome to Legacy IAS Academic. Exciting announcement. Admission now open for UPSC Foundational Course. Batch starting from 11th March 2024. Join now to start your UPSC journey. What we offer: comprehensive coverage of prelims, mains, optional subject, extensive test series, personalized mentorship, interview guidance, study materials and much more. Choose your mode of learning, online or offline. Register now by calling 9606900004 or through WhatsApp. Hurry, seats filling fast. Don't miss out our free demo classes. Contact us today. Secure your seat now and let's achieve UPSC success together.
With Indian saving is that Indian savings, majority of them are not in the market. They are not with the banks. We have not saved our money in, let's say, fixed deposits, bonds, etc., etc. A lot of the savings that Indians have is at their home. Now there are two issues with this. The very first issue is you have saved it at your home. It's not a part of the economy yet. So what is happening? It's not being utilized by the economy to have a multiplier effect. Right? It's not invested in the economy. Secondly, there is an issue for all of us also who are saving at home, because when you save it in a fixed deposit, or some other tool of the banking system, what happens is you get some interest which helps you to address the inflation. So let's say you had 100 rupees and you saved it in the bank. After 1 year you will get 105 rupees, for example, right? And let's say inflation was 4%. That means whatever was the worth of rupees 100, now whatever you can purchase from rupees 100, now you need 104 rupees to purchase the same thing. But you are safe because you had fixed deposited it and you have got 105 rupees. So the value of your money has not gone down. It has gone up by a lesser amount, but still it has gone up. If you would have saved it at your home, that 100 rupees would have remained 100 only. And now after 1 year to buy a thing which was of 100 years 1 year ago, now you need 4 rupees additional. So the value of your money has gone down. Why? Because you saved it with yourself, you never invested it anywhere, you did not bring it into the market system. So that is the concept, that India has a very high saving, India is a very high saving economy, but the savings are majorly with the households and not in the market. So that is one concept. But let's come back to the question. So despite a high saving economy, capital formation, the capital formation which is happening because of high saving economy, when the economy is saving a lot, money is getting saved, that means capital is being formed, that means money is getting accumulated. That is what capital formation is. Okay, so despite a high saving, capital formation which is happening, that capital formation, okay, so despite a high saving economy, the capital formation that is happening, that capital formation may not result in significant increase in the output. Okay, so you are saving a lot, capital is getting accumulated, but still it is not leading to increase in the output. Your output which is there, it is not increasing. And the question asks why? It is due to what? Number one, weak administrative machinery. There is weak administrative machinery. The administration is not proper, the governance is not proper, the regulation is not proper, the machinery is very weak. That is one reason, the option which they have given. Second is illiteracy. We are illiterate, we don't know how to use it, for example. That is what they are saying. C option is high population density. Population density is too high. Okay. Let's see whether that works or not. Finally, they have said high capital output ratio. High capital output ratio. Now, here you have to know the concept of high capital output ratio. Without knowing that, still if I want to give you a logic to solve this without knowing that, I'll give you. But in the exam, guys, I will urge you to prepare, to study well, to revise well, so that you know these basic concepts. But I'm going to give you additional thing also, some tricks and tips while we go ahead. I'll keep giving you. For example, if you look at these first three options, these options are similar. Similar by similar, I mean they are subjective options. Illiteracy is there. Because of illiteracy, what will happen? Right? So two different countries are there. One is more illiterate, the other is less illiterate. Whenever you are checking the impact of certain thing, you need to keep everything else constant. So let us say they have equal number of saving, equal amount of saving, equal capital formation. Now one economy is comparatively illiterate, the other economy is comparatively literate. Does that necessarily mean that the illiterate economy will have less output? No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Illiteracy may not define it. I may be too educated, I may be graduate, postgraduate, PhD holder, and like me, there are many people, whatever accumulation of capital is there, formation of capital, we are probably not using it judicially, wisely, in the right place. Others can be less literate than us, more illiterate or illiterate people, they can still use it and create output. So this would not be the answer. Also, because if this could have been the answer, then population density would have also impacted. These are all social issues. Option B and C are social issues. So if one social issue would have been the reason, probably the other social issue would have also been the reason. But there is no option like both B and C, right? Because anyhow they have given it as A, B, C. So once you see these two similar options and they are not there, so if one is not there, the other will also not be there. But let us understand with the help of example. If there is high population density, no, not a problem. A country is having a higher population density, still can have a higher output ratio. If let's say the population is skilled, or for any XYZ reason, right? So this is also not correct, right? In the same manner, weak administrative system, weak administrative machinery, administration is weak, but this also does not necessarily mean that it may not result. They are saying may not, of course, that it can, but it can so happen it may not result in significant increase in output. So even with weak machinery, there can be significant increase. The correct answer here is capital output ratio. Why? It's very simple, because it is an objective definition only of the increase in output. So what is capital output ratio? Capital output ratio is capital required to raise GDP. What is GDP? GDP is nothing but output. So if the capital required to raise GDP, that means capital required to raise the output, is high, then what will happen? You can have high savings which will leading to capital formation, but still significant increase in output is not there. Why? Because for every percentage in increase in GDP, you need a huge amount of capital. That is the correct answer. So we should know what is high capital output ratio. What is capital output ratio? Capital output ratio is the capital required to raise the output by a single unit. How much capital is required to raise the output by 1 unit? That is your capital output ratio. Now if that is high as in, so what I am saying, capital output ratio, capital output ratio is equals to capital required per increase in GDP or output. So if I say the capital output ratio is high, how will it be high? If this becomes high, no. If this becomes high, if the increase becomes high, the ratio will become lower. Why? Because this is the numerator, capital required is the numerator, increase in output is the denominator. So how will this ratio become high? When the capital required becomes high. So high capital output ratio means high amount of capital is required. So if high amount of capital is required to increase the output, then what will happen? Even with the capital formation, it may not result in significant. There may be some, but it may not result in significant increase in the output. Is that clear? With the help of logic, of course, we were able to eliminate these two very clearly, but this is a very basic concept. You should know it. High capital output ratio. Capital output ratio is capital required to raise the GDP or the output, and if it is high, that means you require higher amount of capital, and since you require higher amount of capital, even if the capital is being formed, there will not be a significant increase in the output. Clear? Now, let's move on to the next question. So, the next question says that if a commodity is provided for free, so you are getting a free commodity. If a commodity is provided free to the public by the government, let's say for example, you are getting even roads are free. Of course, we say it's my road, I have paid taxes, all that is fine, but after paying taxes which you are obliged to pay, then whatever you are getting from the government, it's like a public good, a free good. So if a commodity is provided free to the public by the government, then what happens? Then option A says opportunity cost is zero. Remember, it's very difficult for the opportunity cost to be zero. What is opportunity cost? I'll give you an example. I am here teaching all of you as a part of the Legacy IAS team. I am working here, I am giving my time, effort, energy, everything here, for which I would get a remuneration, for example, right? So what am I doing? I am giving my time, effort, everything, I am getting a remuneration for it. So when I am working here, I have let go of, let's say, other opportunities, right? So since I have let go of other opportunities, let's say I work here and get X amount. If I would have worked elsewhere and got Y amount, there is another firm I could have worked and got Z amount, right? So I did not choose them, I chose this, right? So since I chose this, I have let go of what? Now I cannot say I let go of both the things and my opportunity cost is Y plus Z. No, then you will have 10 different options and you will say that I let go of 10 different kinds of remuneration. No, it doesn't work like that. So I would have either chosen this or this. Let's say Y is greater than Z, so probably let's say you can still choose Z, but let's say I would have chosen Y. I would have chosen some other firm with Y amount of remuneration. But instead of choosing Y, I chose to work here and get X remuneration. So I have let go of what? Y amount of remuneration. So what is my opportunity cost to work here? The opportunity cost for me to work here is what? It is Y. It's not zero, it is Y. Alright? Because if I would have worked elsewhere, I would have earned Y. I did not. So that is my opportunity cost. Something which I will not get. To take this opportunity, I let go of Y. That is why the opportunity cost for me to work here is Y. I hope that is absolutely clear. Right? So now let's come back to this. If a commodity is provided free to the public by the government, then opportunity cost is zero? Absolutely not. Why? Because instead of providing that particular commodity, that particular good, the government could have provided something else. right? Whatever goods and services you are getting, whatever commodity you are getting for free, it still required some amount of factor of production, some amount of money. So the government is giving you this particular commodity for free. If they would have not given you this for free, they could have done something else with that, right? But they did not do that. So whatever they did not do, that would be the cost, that would be the opportunity cost that the government let go of. That is why there will be some or the other opportunity cost. That is why opportunity cost is zero. This statement is absolutely wrong, right? The opportunity cost is ignored? No. Ignored as in you can't just like that ignore it. And in a developing country like India, how can you ignore the opportunity cost? In fact, opportunity cost will be one of the basis for planning. If I want this, I have to let go of this, especially for a developing country like India, wherein we have so much of limitation of resources. So we have to take a call. You know, we have defense allocation for budget, socio-economic backwardness, allocation for schemes and etc. So how to allocate, how much to allocate where? And if you allocate X here, you have to probably reduce from somewhere else, right? So you don't ignore it. And here, just because it is free does not mean that the opportunity cost is ignored. Absolutely not, right? Third option says the opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is transferred. The opportunity cost which was there, it is transferred from the consumers of the product to the tax paying public. From the consumers of the product to the tax paying public. We'll come on to this option. What is the last option saying? The last option says that the opportunity cost is transferred from the consumer of the product to the government. From the consumer of the product to the government. Now, one of the options are correct. Either C is correct, either D is correct. We have already established opportunity cost is there. Okay, you are losing some cost. So, opportunity cost is there. Now, is the opportunity cost transferred from the consumer of the product to the taxpayer? Tax-paying public, or the opportunity cost is transferred from the consumers of the product to the government. So either from the consumers of the product, consumers to either the taxpayers or consumers to the government. Either of this option will be correct.
Welcome to Legacy IAS Academic. Exciting announcement. Admission now open for UPSC Foundational Course. Batch starting from 11th March 2024. Join now to start your UPSC journey. What we offer: comprehensive coverage of prelims, mains, optional subject, extensive test series, personalized mentorship, interview guidance, study materials and much more. Choose your mode of learning, online or offline. Register now by calling 9606900004 or through WhatsApp. Hurry, seats filling fast. Don't miss out our free demo classes. Contact us today. Secure your seat now and let's achieve UPSC success together.